For a good chunk of the beginning of 2023, I was in both the Street Fighter VI and Final Fantasy XVI waiting rooms, anticipating their highly regarded releases. In the midst of waiting, I had the chance to play a few games to occupy my time. A few games that I never got the chance to play growing up as a kid. A few games that I got the chance to play that came out this year. One series in particular that managed to be Ace Attorney and Battle Royale's deranged love child caught my attention a few years ago, and I got the opportunity to play across the three main line titles for it, and this game is Danganronpa. Danganronpa is a visual novel game franchise that spans across 5 games, an anime adaptation, and spin-off mangas. Published by Spike Chunsoft, the series is older than it looks despite its first appearance in the West being back in 2015. While Danganronpa 1 and 2 have an interconnected story, the entry I want to focus more on for today's video is Danganronpa V3, because its story is quite the left turn from the previous two. And also, despite V3 being the black sheep of the series, this video is here to explain why V3 being intentionally designed how it is becomes vital to the game's overall message, and why I eventually came around to actually liking this particular entry. Before I deep dive into V3, let me give a brief summary of the first 2 games, since without them the impact of Danganronpa V3's twist wouldn't exist. The series begins with Makoto Naegi, a regular kid who randomly gets selected to attend Hope's Peak Academy, a prestigious high school in Japan where the best students in the nation are routinely scouted to attend. These kids are so talented in whatever particular field of study they happen to be or grow up in that they are labeled ultimates. You have the ultimate swimmer, the ultimate yakuza, the ultimate cook, who should be called the ultimate pervert, and so on. But Naegi himself, labeled the ultimate luckiest student and eventually the ultimate hope, as he exchanges and battle with the mastermind behind forcing their former classmates to participate in these broadcasted killings, Junko Inoshima, the ultimate despair. The battle between these two opposing ideologies are woven like a cycle when it comes to Danganronpa. Hope begets despair, and despair begets hope. It is this cycle that shapes Danganronpa as a whole. Danganronpa 2 stars a cast of students who were brainwashed by Junko into being followers of her and are put into a chamber by Naegi, attempting to wipe their memories of the atrocities they committed in honor of Junko and give them a second chance to choose hope instead. The remaining characters opt to create their own future, where they don't necessarily choose hope or despair, rather they prefer to take their own autonomy back. Perhaps their second chance at shaping their own futures again will be more hopeful, or despair lies at the end. Regardless, the message of Danganronpa 2 is that no one else is allowed to make that choice when it comes to your future except yourself. With the 3rd season of the anime being the quote-unquote true Danganronpa 3 that would conclude the despair arc, the chapter on the whole hope-despair philosophy that drove this hot nut job to destroy the world has finally ended, and leaves a silver lining that the world would eventually return to balance as Naegi becomes the new headmaster of Hope's Peak Academy, restoring hope back into such a bleak world. Right? Then comes Danganronpa V3. Danganronpa V3 released 5 years after Danganronpa 2's conclusion. So what lied in store to continue on what seemingly was already concluded? That was the question I was looking for when I began V3, and let me tell you, I could not find an answer because I couldn't stay awake long enough to pay attention. The game started off abysmally boring. The charm of 1 and 2 severely lacking in this one. I couldn't even pick a character whose presence I tolerated, let alone liked. The only characters I did find somewhat enjoyable was George of the Jungle here and Little Miss Kill Bill right here. That's when I noticed something was off about this game. I reached my first epiphany not that long after starting, wondering, what if we're all inside of a video game? Everything seemed to suggest that, as these characters had shallow, tropish nuances that were overly exaggerated more than usual in Danganronpa, to the point where these tropes weren't a part of their characters. Rather, the characters felt like they were just walking tropes. Then in the 3rd case, we literally go inside of an Xbox to become game characters. Oh man. But it wasn't until after the 3rd case when I noticed another glaring oddity. This chick right here, Tsumugi Shirogane. You see, this chick is the ultimate cosplayer. The problem I have with her is that she's just there. Characters like her in Danganronpa, who barely add any sort of dynamic to the game, typically don't survive long. With how obnoxious this cast in this game was, at least they were present enough in the game for me to yell, "Please stop talking." However, there were times where I genuinely forgot Tsumugi was in the game with how non-existent she is, and about 15 hours in, every time she talked, I would genuinely ask, "Why are you still here?" So it's bad enough that this cast is already a loaf of stale bread, but this girl right here, stale bread with moldy crust. I figure for someone with barely any importance to the story this far in the game, there's gotta be something more to her than what meets the eyes. Then it happened, the final trial. During the final trial, a number of revelations are revealed. For one, we pressure Monokuma into another trial in deciding who was the mastermind behind this killing game, and the mystery behind Rantaro's murder, as he is the only person at the beginning of this game who died prematurely without remembering his ultimate talent. All in thanks to evil Astro Boy deciding he was going to destroy the entire school, which means his butthead finally had a role to play, making it obvious that she was Rantaro's murderer. But what came after was a roller coaster ride. Just when we thought Junko would finally die, her legacy lives on once again, through a cosplayer no less, who dubbed herself Junko the 53rd. The bombshell drops at this entire time. We wrote a show, the 53rd season of Danganronpa. Yes, welcome to Danganronpa season 53. This whole time, this V in the title was a Roman numeral placeholder for 5. The game Oppenheimers the fourth wall, as well as the minds of the remaining cast, as they are told that, well, all of the Danganronpa characters are fake, from 1 all the way to 3. And the V3 characters are actually fans of the Danganronpa series who signed up to be on Danganronpa the show. They are real people who volunteered to have their memories altered to turn into Danganronpa characters. I enjoyed this revelation so much that it somewhat made up for suffering through the first 20 hours of this game. The impressive part about this twist is that this game gave so many clues about this spin in its game design. These clues being, well, the very essence that drives stan culture. While it's fine to be a fan of a particular person or medium, the word stan is reserved for those of a minority of fans who have gone beyond the boundaries of being a mere fan and are fans who are overly devoted to someone or something, obsessed even. Stan culture for the past 10 years has skyrocketed largely in part to the growing advances and influence of the internet, with millions of people connected through numerous social media sites like YouTube, Facebook, I'm not calling this shit X, TikTok, Instagram, so on, with a plethora of other online forums. Communication is easier than ever, especially the communication between celebrities and their fans, and your chances of getting a response from your favorite singer now is much higher. Although the word has a softer meaning, as some fans may use it as an affectionate way to say they're just a passionate fan of the arts. I'm also aware that the internet loves to overuse words out of their original context, as the word originates from an Eminem song about a fan who kills his girlfriend and himself because he didn't receive a response from the rapper. Sounds like it's more the extreme end of activities that Stan would engage in, but these extremes have been committed as recently as 2016, the victims ironically being the very celebrity being Stan. Although celebrities are the most prominent example to use, Stan culture can go beyond people, and it does. There are Stans for anime, comics, games, cartoons, and so on. The media might be different, but it's safe to say there are traits that we can all recognize that Stans exhibit, whether from engaging with a Stan ourselves or from witnessing Stans fighting each other's or amongst themselves. Some common traits that usually identifies as Stan are harassing people who may show a disinterest through insults, doxing, or death threats, and on the flip side, question other fans' validity in an attempt to gatekeep the media. The type of fans who develop a parasocial relationship, forming headcanons about shippings or wishing they could live the life of someone or in the world of their favorite work. Essentially, shedding their own individuality the stronger their bond or their love is for the subject. If you ask me, it sounds like everything about Tsumugi fits being a stan to a T. She cosplays as Danganronpa characters, imitates each character's particular speech pattern and voice, is the mastermind behind the killings, and strong-arms Shuichi to finish the game, relentlessly urging the cast to choose either despair or hope, with the knowledge that regardless of their choice, the game is rigged. Above all else, her lack of a personality, her boringness, the fact that she fades into the background so easily for a majority of the game is what heightens the impact of the twist, as she literally makes Danganronpa her personality. However, Tsumugi isn't the only foot that fits into this shoe. Now, I know that I wasn't being ridiculous when I say I gave no banana split of a fuck about this cast of characters. None of the characters felt individually unique. The dialogue between them abhorrently bland, bland. The crude jokes somehow annoyingly worse than they already were, and out of place most of the time. And the biggest clue of all, a protagonist that was unconfident in his ultimate talent? There was another character who went by the name of Kaede who briefly mentioned to a monocub that she might be talented at playing the piano, but she didn't consider herself an ultimate talent. As for Shuichi, he mentions apprenticing for a detective, but his waning confidence stuck out like a sore thumb. Considering previous Danganronpa games, the characters are consistently confident or cocky in their talent. It doesn't help that there was a previous ultimate detective in Danganronpa 1, and let me tell y'all something. Kirigiri right here? She's my girl. That's a detective even Bruce Wayne would be proud of. There have been awkward or shy characters in the previous two casts that would make you question how they become an ultimate talent. But even those characters displayed pride in their talents, reaffirming that they're aware the talents that they honed, the talents that they have been chosen for, are still left to be desired, even in the most undesirable of characters. The V3 cast felt like they were mimicking and imitating previous Dangan characters, aka caricatures of personalities featured in Danganronpa characters, devoid of their own personalities. And the game even nods at this at the beginning when the monocubs change the characters' clothing to reflect each member's talent they claim to have, meaning that all the cast had to their individuality was the literal clothes on their backs. And even that was taken away to look like appropriate Danganronpa characters. Their memories wiped and replaced with fake memories that follow similar paths as previous Danganronpa games. And as much as people want to believe that there are layers and depths to constitute steadily doubting which events in V3 might have been fabricated by Tsumugi or actually did happen, since the theme of this game is lying and pretty much exploring the grays instead of being black and white with the whole hope and despair concept, I would like to argue the game makes it clear at times what were lies and what was the truth, considering Danganronpa is a simple and straightforward game. I'm sorry. Look, the challenge may be getting through a lot of repetitive dialogue, and the game's residential dumbasses like to waste your time because they do more talking than paying attention, but Danganronpa's story is a walk in the park in comparison to similar games like Ace Attorney, where I'm over here learning about the concept of double jeopardy at the Johnny Cochran age of 12. Remember what I mentioned previously, that all they had to their individuality was the clothes on their backs before they got changed? While writing the script for this video, that very line actually got me curious enough to wonder, what were they wearing in their audition tapes? As well as, what were their clothes in the flashback lights? So I went back to a previous save file and progressed through the final part of the game, just enough to rewatch the audition tapes. And in the audition tapes, Shuichi, Kaede, and Kaito are wearing the same clothes they wore in the prologue, meaning the audition tapes can be presumed to be real. I then rewatched the flashback light memories, and in the flashback lights, Shuichi and the rest of the cast are wearing the clothes given to them by the monocubs, meaning those scenarios in the flashback lights never did happen. They are indeed manufactured to create a Danganronpa appropriate backstory. Also, since we know thanks to chapter 6 that a blackout light exists, it's safe to assume this same blackout light might have been used on the contestants to wipe their memories before Danganronpa V3 began. Basically, once you sign up for Danganronpa, well, you've essentially conformed to the mercy Danganronpa lacks. This cast of Danganronpa superfans is why the game's revelation works so effectively. The game has always been self-aware that it's a fictional piece of work, with the amount of references it contains and its ubiquitous manner of weaving between goofy and serious dialogue. It's aware it's never been this grand standing of a series that would make a change in gaming or have a compelling narrative that would win it awards, nor does it take itself serious to do so. Danganronpa knows that its appeal, its identity, is the killing game that forces a group of students to murder each other. And before anyone assumes the position of, well, if Danganronpa didn't want us to like it, then it shouldn't promote murder, I would like to say that's such a narrow and immature stance to take, considering Danganronpa is a game that shows the emotional and psychological trauma, aka the repercussions, the consequences of murder. In other words, it's not kids killing one another without minimal consequences like a GTA role-playing lobby. And I would argue if you believe all there is to Danganronpa is murder, then you're cut from the same cloth as Tsumugi to want to continuously see these characters thrown into the same cruel predicament over and over, trapped and forced to murder each other. Danganronpa also knows its appeal is seeing these characters escape such a hopeless scenario and emerging triumphant at the end with newly forged friendships. The game calls out its stans who disregard the murderous nature of the series, that they view Danganronpa more as entertainment rather than the harsh reality it is. kids murdering each other. To suspend the dark subject that defines Danganronpa at its core and consume the series on a surface level leaves one with a similar narrow-minded mentality as Tsumugi, who could not fathom that someone could just decide not to play Danganronpa and leave. Like, it's fine to like someone like Kokichi for his character's purpose to the story. It's not fine to like someone like Kokichi, whose personality in real life you would file a police report against because he paid the neighbor's kid to choke your dog to death for $50. That's the kind of person Kokichi is. Looking back and finally taking time to soak and analyze the final trial over time, I give Danganronpa props for being bold enough to have his characters reject Danganronpa and attempt to possibly say, Danganronpa as a killing game should not be the part of Danganronpa you look up to. So, that leaves us with this question. Why like Danganronpa despite the revelation that everything Naegi, Kirigiri, Hajime, Chisaki, and so many more went through was all fake? Why continue to care at this point? Despite my enjoyment of it, the ending does have a poor execution. However, if you didn't like the ending because of its message, then I say the game did its job on delivering the message. The reveal that Danganronpa isn't real and the characters are fake isn't a reveal at all. What the game really wants to know is your response. Does knowing Danganronpa being a piece of fiction change the impact the series might have had on you? Does this make you believe the first two games don't matter anymore? Is your investment in the story or seeing Naegi or Hajime and the others triumphant in the end suddenly meaningless? But the feelings you felt when you witnessed your favorite character murdered or become exposed as a murderer now invalid? The game's message is no. It should continue to matter to you because that's the power of fiction. Fiction can never be meaningless if it has a meaning to people, a personal attachment that inspires people, pushes people to be better. It is this belief that fuels Shuichi and the others. They still felt the pain and emotions of witnessing seeing their friends murdered, and those feelings were more than enough to convince them to get the hell out of Danganronpa despite signing up for it. They want to be better than what they were forced to participate in. The only way to do that is by regaining their individuality, aka returning to being talentless, normal individuals. Once I sat back and reflected on this, that's when this segment in the game began to make sense. I initially wrote this segment off during my playthrough because it was randomly out of nowhere. It was such a scene that felt like it had nothing to do with the story, but after finishing the game, I have to give Danganronpa its props for how big of a clue this pathetic child actually was. For a small scene, it reveals so much about V3's ending message that looking back, it's quite impressive to see how much of it was fitted into this 2-minute section. For starters, the kid's name is Makoto, who is presumably named after Makoto Naegi. And just like Naegi, he's a normal kid with no talent placed into a prestigious school. While Naegi sees his admittance into Hope's Peak as good luck, this Makoto views his school life as bad luck as he's unable to befriend classmates and doesn't really understand his teacher's lectures, resulting in him feeling isolated from everyone else while facing constant pressure from his parents at home. The kid then vents about how he wants to get away from all of the stress he's feeling, only to suddenly express he'll be fine because he has a reason to live. The reason shown in the very next scene where the kid is watching something on his phone and shows appreciation towards this unspecified media he's obsessed with for giving him the strength to continue living, to the point that he even adds that one day he wishes to also something before the scene cuts. And it's no surprise to believe that what he's watching is Danganronpa. How do we know? His name. Since he is named after Naegi, we can assume his parents are also fans of Danganronpa. So here we have a kid whose parents named him after the hero, the Makoto, who represents unbridled optimism and wanted to escape the killing game. While ironically, this Makoto finds Danganronpa as a form of escapism from the negativity surrounding him. But he develops such an unhealthy obsession that he dreams to eventually partake in the killing game. What I love about this dynamic is that it shows without stating, it shows without telling, that this kid's parents found the struggle and eventual victory Naegi achieved so inspiring that they named their child after him. They managed to find a healthy, personal connection to Danganronpa, a personal feeling they felt so strongly about Makoto's name is passed to this kid in the hopes that this child overcomes any obstacles he may face. While this Makoto does form a personal connection to Danganronpa as it gives him strength to press forward, the last line where he wishes to partake in Danganronpa strongly suggests he relies on Danganronpa so much as an emotional crutch, that he no longer sees Danganronpa as the horrid, tragic killing game that it is. Rather, he sees the show as his only source of happiness. What's sad about this sort of situational irony is that we know this Makoto will be subjected to the same treatment as the V3 cast and all the previous contestants for the last 52 seasons. His memories, terrible school life and all, wiped in exchange for a fake Danganronpa-approved personality. Yet Makoto's desire to participate in Danganronpa, to adopt a fake memory that would give him an ultimate talent, a desirable trait that comes with reputation and prestige, if it means committing murder or being murdered in order to escape his living reality, shows just how easy the line between being a fan and being a stan can easily be crossed. Whew, now that I've gotten all of this itch out of my system about V3, I can finally put Danganronpa to bed. If you've made it to the end of this video, please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Also leave a comment down below on your own reaction to the Danganronpa ending, or just your reaction in general to playing the Danganronpa series if you have, and what Danganronpa might mean to you if you are a fan of the series. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, but until then, please remember to stay safe, stay healthy, peace.